Your son's life support isn't our emergency. The words cut through the darkness of the powerless hospital room like ice. David Mitchell clutched his son's cold hand tighter, watching the battery indicator on the vital medical equipment blink its final warning. Outside, the entire district lay in darkness, a sea of shadows punctuated only by distant sirens and desperate voices. The power company executive adjusted his Italian silk tie, his Rolex catching a glint from emergency lights. Pay the outstanding bills first, then we'll discuss restoring power to this sector. The blackout had stretched into its third day, transforming the once bustling neighborhood into a dystopian nightmare. Hundreds of families huddled in their darkened homes. But for David and his son Tommy, darkness meant more than inconvenience. It meant counting down the precious hours left on backup batteries. The hospital's emergency generators had failed yesterday, leaving critical patients like Tommy at the mercy of portable units. Through the window, David could see other parents in the pediatric ward, their faces illuminated by phone screens as they desperately posted their stories online, begging for help. As the executive turned to leave, a tweet notification lit up screens across the ward. Parents gasped, showing each other their phones. Someone had managed to reach out to the right person, and their story was gaining traction. In Silicon Valley, miles away from the darkened hospital, a man known for disrupting industries and challenging the status quo sat in his office, reading about Tommy's story. Elon Musk's eyes narrowed as he reached for his phone, his fingers already typing a response that would change everything. The battery indicator on Tommy's ventilator blinked steadily, each flash marking the countdown to catastrophe. David had spent the last 48 hours watching that cruel red light, calculating and recalculating how many hours remained. Tommy's condition, a rare form of muscular dystrophy, meant that every breath depended on the machine's steady hum. Before the blackout, they'd had a routine. David working remote IT jobs from Tommy's hospital room, sharing jokes during cartoons, and planning for a future that now seemed to be slipping away in the darkness. The power company executive's footsteps echoed down the corridor, accompanied by the whispers and muffled sobs of other families. Each room in the pediatric ward told a similar story: children tethered to failing machines, parents facing impossible choices. Some families had already been forced to transfer their children to hospitals in other districts, a luxury David couldn't afford. His insurance barely covered Tommy's basic care, and the astronomical electric bills that had triggered this crisis had drained his savings months ago. Now, in the dim emergency lighting, he could see other parents filming videos, sharing their stories, their desperate pleas for help, merging into a digital chorus of desperation. Outside the hospital, a news van's lights cut through the darkness, drawing a crowd of angry residents. The power company's statement played on phones and tablets throughout the ward. Due to widespread payment delinquency in District 7, service restoration requires full settlement of outstanding balances. The corporate doublespeak couldn't mask the cruel reality. They were holding lives hostage for profit. David's tweet about the executive's visit had already been shared thousands of times, with responses flooding in from across the country. Videos of other parents in the ward went viral, showing children attached to beeping machines with dwindling power. Local news stations picked up the story, their reporters broadcasting live from the hospital parking lot where hundreds of residents had gathered in protest. The executive, identified by internet sleuths as James Richardson, VP of Regional Operations, had retreated to the company's downtown headquarters. His corporate headshot now circulated online alongside screenshots of his $3.2 million salary and recent quotes about necessary austerity measures. Each share and retweet added fuel to the growing outrage, but David couldn't focus on the brewing social media storm. Tommy's ventilator battery showed less than 6 hours remaining. The first sign that something was happening came when Elon Musk's reply appeared under David's tweet. This stops now. No child should die because of a power bill. Give me 1 hour." The tweet exploded instantly, but Musk wasn't finished. Within minutes, he posted again, tagging the power company. "Your greed is showing. I'm en route to District 7. Bring your lawyers." The hospital corridor erupted with hope and disbelief as phones lit up with notifications. Parents shared screenshots, their tears of desperation turning to possibilities of salvation. But the power company responded quickly, their legal team issuing a statement about regulatory obligations and safety protocols that prevented third-party intervention in the power grid. David watched the online battle unfold through blurry eyes, still counting the ventilator's flashing lights. Tommy stirred in his sleep, his chest rising and falling with each mechanical breath. Outside, the crowd in the parking lot had doubled, their phone lights creating a sea of artificial stars. News helicopters circled overhead, their spotlights scanning the darkened district. Then someone shouted from the hallway, "Tesla trucks!" Dozens of them, coming down the highway. The Tesla semi-trucks rolled into the hospital parking lot with military precision, their electric motors humming quietly through the darkness. Each vehicle carried what looked like industrial-sized versions of Tesla Powerwall batteries, already being unloaded by crews in Tesla uniforms. The crowd parted as a Model X pulled up to the hospital entrance, its falcon wing doors rising dramatically in the news helicopter's spotlights. Elon Musk emerged wearing a plain black t-shirt and jeans, his phone in one hand, and what appeared to be technical blueprints in the other. He barely acknowledged the cameras, instead heading straight for the hospital's maintenance entrance, where a team of engineers was already gathering. The power company's security tried to block their path, but Musk simply held up his phone, showing a live streaming video that already had millions of viewers. "Your CEO is watching this," he announced, his voice carrying across the now silent parking lot, "along with your shareholders and the governor's office. We can do this the easy way or the hard way." He turned to the crowd, raising his voice. "How many of you have Tesla vehicles?" Several dozen hands went up. "Good. Drive them here. We're creating a temporary microgrid." Inside the pediatric ward, the ventilator's battery warning had shifted from yellow to red. David watched the activity outside his son's window, hope warring with fear as he saw power company reinforcements arriving, including James Richardson himself, now accompanied by a team of lawyers carrying emergency injunction papers. The legal battle for Tommy's life was about to begin. The confrontation unfolded in the hospital's emergency command center, where fluorescent emergency lights cast harsh shadows across concerned faces. James Richardson slammed the injunction papers onto a desk, his corporate confidence wavering as Musk's engineers continued working despite the legal threats. "This is a direct violation of utility regulations. You can't just connect unauthorized equipment to our grid." "Your grid?" Musk's quiet question cut through the tension. He pulled up a satellite view of the district on the command center's main screen. "The grid that you deliberately shut down? The one that's killing children right now?" He zoomed in on the hospital. "Look at these readings. Your grid isn't just offline. It's been systematically disabled to prevent any backup systems from working." The revelation spread through social media like wildfire. Tesla owners were now arriving in waves, their cars forming a glowing chain around the hospital. Engineers had already connected the first set of Powerwall units to the hospital's electrical room, bypassing the disabled main systems. Security footage emerged online showing power company technicians actively disabling backup generator connections 2 days ago. David watched the battery percentage tick down to 15% as nurses rushed between rooms, preparing patients for the power switch. Other parents huddled around phones, streaming the confrontation live. Richardson's face had gone from confident to ashen as Musk's team uncovered more evidence of deliberate sabotage. But the power company executive had one last card to play. He pulled out his phone and dialed. "Get me the governor's office," he demanded loudly. "This ends now." The governor's response came not through Richardson's phone, but via a live television broadcast playing on phones throughout the hospital. "In light of the evidence of deliberate infrastructure sabotage, I am declaring a state of emergency in District 7. Richardson's face contorted as the governor continued, "I've ordered an immediate investigation into Pacific Power's actions, and I'm authorizing Mr. Musk's emergency intervention." But the victory was momentary. Tommy's ventilator alarm suddenly pierced the air. The battery had dropped to 5%. Other critical care machines throughout the ward began their final warnings, a chorus of beeping that sent medical staff running. The Tesla engineers worked frantically at their connections, but Richardson's earlier sabotage had been thorough. Every attempt to connect to the hospital's internal power grid met with failure. Musk himself sprinted to the electrical room, taking over from his engineers. His fingers flew across a laptop keyboard while calling out orders, "Reroute through the emergency circuits. Forget the main grid. We're building our own." The Tesla owners outside had created a ring of vehicles, each connecting to the next, forming an impromptu power network that bypassed the damaged infrastructure completely. David held Tommy's hand as the ventilator's screen flashed 2%. Nurses stood ready with manual resuscitation bags. Through his tears, he could see Musk in the hallway, now covered in dust and electrical residue, coordinating with his team. Richardson stood watching, his legal papers forgotten, as the final connections were made. The entire hospital seemed to hold its breath as Musk's finger hovered over the activation command. Tommy's ventilator blinked its final warning, 1%. Musk hit the activation command. For a moment, nothing happened. Just the endless beeping of failing machines and the collective held breath of hundreds. Then, starting from the Tesla vehicles outside, a wave of power surged through the improvised grid. Emergency lights flickered, then stabilized. Tommy's ventilator screen blinked, switched to main power, and the battery warning disappeared. Throughout the ward, critical care machines returned to normal operation, their urgent alarms replaced by steady, rhythmic beeping. The hallway erupted in tears and cheers, but Musk wasn't finished. He turned to face Richardson, holding up his phone to show a live stream that had now reached over 10 million viewers. "Let's talk about what really happened here," he said, his voice carrying that quiet intensity that had launched rockets and revolutionized industries. "Your company didn't just shut off power. You deliberately sabotaged backup systems that would have kept these children alive." Richardson's lawyer stepped forward with more papers, but Musk cut him off. "Save it. The governor's not your biggest problem anymore." He nodded to his team, who projected documents onto the wall. Internal emails, work orders, profit projections. "You calculated the exact point at which desperate families would pay anything to save their children. You engineered this crisis." The evidence was damning, but Richardson's face showed no remorse. "Everything we did was legal," he insisted, straightening his tie. "Our shareholders expect—" He never finished the sentence. David Mitchell's fist connected with his jaw, sending the executive sprawling across the hallway floor. Security rushed forward, but Musk waved them back. "Let him up," he said, watching Richardson slowly rise, blood trickling from his lip. "Let him face them." He gestured to the gathering crowd of parents, nurses, and patients who had emerged from their rooms. "Tell them about your shareholders." Richardson dabbed his lip with a monogrammed handkerchief, his composure cracking as he faced the families. Behind him, the wall still displayed damning email threads discussing profit optimization through crisis creation. A mother stepped forward, holding up her phone to show bills totaling thousands of dollars. Another parent joined her, then another, each with similar stories of suddenly inflated charges. "Your algorithm targeted single parents first," Musk explained, his voice carrying through the now silent hallway. Then families with critical care needs. You identified the most vulnerable and exploited their desperation. He turned to the watching world through the live stream. But here's what they didn't count on. We don't need their grid anymore. Moving to a window, he pointed to the ring of Tesla vehicles. Each car out there is part of a new power network. What you're seeing isn't just an emergency solution, it's the future. Engineers were already distributing tablets showing plans for permanent microgrids powered by solar and battery installations. Starting tonight, District 7 becomes energy independent. And for any other communities facing similar corruption, he paused, looking directly into the cameras. Tesla's entire engineering team is at your disposal. Power isn't a privilege, it's a right. The impact of Musk's words rippled through social media in real time. Hashtags number "Power is a Right" and number District 7 topped global trending lists. Richardson watched his career implode as shareholders panic-sold Pacific Power stock, the company's value plummeting by billions. But in the pediatric ward, David wasn't watching the market crash or the viral spread. He was listening to Tommy breathe, each steady mechanical rhythm a gift. Musk walked away from the cameras, following David back to Tommy's room. He stood quietly in the doorway, watching the father and son. "The new grid will be complete within a week," he said softly, "but we're not stopping there." He showed David the preliminary plans on his phone, not just power infrastructure, but a complete community transformation, solar panels for every roof, battery storage systems, apprenticeship programs for local youth to learn grid maintenance. "My son wants to be an engineer," David said, his voice thick with emotion. "He draws power plants in his notebooks, talks about fixing things." Musk smiled, moving to Tommy's bedside where the boy was beginning to stir. Tommy's eyes widened as he recognized the man standing there, then grew even wider as Musk placed a Tesla engineer's cap on his head. "We'll need good engineers to run this grid," Musk said, watching Tommy's face light up. "Think you can help us?" Outside, the first rays of dawn broke over District 7, catching the solar panels being installed on the hospital roof. The darkness was ending, not just for one night, but forever. 1 week after the night that changed District 7, the neighborhood hummed with new energy, both literally and metaphorically. Tesla crews had worked around the clock, transforming the once darkened streets into a model of sustainable power. Solar panels gleamed on rooftops, Powerwall units lined community centers, and the hospital now boasted the largest backup battery system in the state. Tommy sat in his hospital room, now decorated with engineering diagrams and Tesla posters, his ventilator running smoothly on the new grid. He'd become something of a local celebrity, with other young patients gathering in his room for daily engineering lessons live-streamed by Tesla's team. David watched his son explain microgrid concepts to other children, his eyes bright with purpose despite his physical challenges. The former Pacific Power building downtown had been converted into a community power center, its lobby displaying real-time data from the independent grid. Where corporate logos once dominated, a simple message now stood: "Power to the people, District 7 Energy Cooperative." Inside, former Pacific Power technicians worked alongside Tesla engineers being retrained for the new system. The District 7 model sparked a nationwide movement. Similar cases of utility company exploitation emerged across the country, but now communities had a blueprint for independence. Musk kept his promise. Tesla engineers deployed to vulnerable neighborhoods, establishing microgrids and training local residents. The company's stock soared as shareholders realized this new mission was both profitable and transformative. James Richardson faced federal charges for the deliberate endangerment of critical care patients. His trial became a watershed moment for corporate accountability, with evidence from District 7 exposing similar schemes across multiple states. Former Pacific Power executives turned whistleblowers, revealing decades of systematic exploitation of vulnerable communities. David had started teaching at the new District 7 Technical Academy, sharing his IT expertise with residents training to maintain their independent grid. His medical bills had vanished. The hospital, powered almost free by solar and batteries, had drastically reduced its fees. Tommy's room became an unofficial headquarters for young engineers, his mechanical breathing accompanied by the sound of children learning to code grid management software on donated laptops. On the one-year anniversary of the blackout, Elon Musk returned to District 7. The hospital's pediatric ward had been renamed the Tommy Mitchell Innovation Center, its halls now filled with young patients learning about renewable energy between treatments. Tommy, now strong enough for short walks, guided Musk through the facility, proudly showing off student projects and grid monitoring stations. "You know what the best part is?" Tommy asked, pausing by the window that had once shown only darkness. "Everyone's lights stay on now, not just here, everywhere." Outside, the setting sun reflected off hundreds of solar panels, while Tesla Powerwalls hummed quietly in their stations. The old power grid stood as a relic, its towers marked for removal. David joined them, carrying Tommy's latest engineering sketch, a design for mobile emergency power units. Musk studied it with genuine interest, already calling his team to discuss implementation. In the ward behind them, children gathered at their usual spots for the evening engineering lesson, their medical equipment running on power that could never be taken away. The darkness that had threatened their lives had transformed into a light of hope, not just for District 7, but for communities everywhere.